Horror fans didn't get much of a reprieve from Slasher Santas, as just 2 years after Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2, Better Watch Out was released directly to video. That's always a good sign. Always good when the movie title itself is a warning. Ah, boy. Didn't know this doubled as background noise for a struggling New Year's Eve party. That or Ozzy Osbourne is gonna show up any minute now. Get used to that sound, folks. It happens a lot during the runtime. It's to let us know when we should feel uneasy, in case you weren't already by choosing to watch this. The first person we're introduced to is Laura, played by Samantha Scully. It appears that she has some sort of psychic abilities which Dr. Newberry, played by Richard Bamer, is exploiting to try to make contact with the comatose Ricky, now played by Bill Moseley. Yeah, quick question. What is that? The man got shot. Why is he missing half his skull? I had the exact same response. After this psychic session, we meet Laura's brother, Chris, played by Eric DeRay. They're planning to take a trip to their grandmother's for Christmas. Speaking of festive things, an unfortunate drunkard Santa, ironically played by the late director Monte Hellman himself, finds out that it's not the wisest idea to taunt a comatose murderer. And now it's time for some more trauma exploration with Laura's psychiatrist, played by Leonard Mann.
Those unusual experiences you say you've been having since you were a child. Seeing things, if you will.
After the plane crash, when my parents died.
Must not be a very good psychic. She didn't even see the crash coming. Before Laura and Chris head off over the hills and through the woods to Granny's, they pick up Chris's girlfriend, Jerry, played by Laura Herring. Laura and Jerry hit it off right off the bat. Because of the psychic link between them, Ricky knows exactly where Laura is going. He also seems to be getting around pretty well for someone who is fresh out of a coma with liquefied jelly as brains. But honestly, after going through half of the Halloween franchise, I'm becoming numb to this. Ricky's doing so well, as a matter of fact, that he arrives at Granny's before Chris, Laura, and Jerry do. Let me tell you something. This woman, played by Elizabeth Hoffman, is the most delightful part of this whole thing. She doesn't even bat an eye at the sudden appearance of a guy like Ricky at her doorstep. This gem even takes him in and feeds him. She's dead, isn't she? I guess it's time for Lieutenant Connolly, played by the late Robert Culp, to enter the scene.
Comatose, 6 years. How come he's running around killing people?
Thank you!
It's explained that Ricky's brain was surgically reconstructed, and thus the between Dr. Newberry and Lieutenant Connolly, they figure out that Ricky's probably seeking out Laura, so they need to figure out where that would be. Once Chris, Laura, and Jerry arrive at Granny's house, they make themselves at home, despite the fact that Laura senses a disturbance. Meanwhile...
You hooked up? I mean with one of these.
No.
You got a stick?
Up his ass. I'm really glad we could get these intermittent glimpses into a buddy cop style of bonding here, while there's a literal killer bent on murdering a blind girl on the loose.
Do you know what they call it when you get deja vu twice?
A reoccurring extrasensory phenomenon.
Stupid.
This man knew exactly what kind of movie he was signing up for. Dr. Newberry decides to steal the lieutenant's car, when the lieutenant admits that there's a good chance he'll have to kill Ricky. He arrives on the property just in time to see that Ricky has killed Chris, and Ricky doesn't hesitate to kill Dr. Newberry next. So now it's just Jerry and Laura left. It certainly doesn't take long for Jerry to bite the big one though. Laura retreats into the basement where she's greeted by the Obi-Wan spirit of her grandmother.
Concentrate, Laura. Use your mind like a lens to gather the light, to shine the darkness where you cannot see.
You know, this is some really helpful information. But how the hell does Granny know any of it? Is she a psychic too? If so, I guess the psychic force isn't very strong in this family with all the tragic events that have happened, as Laura fights for her life against Ricky. Chris shows up, not quite dead. He makes a valiant effort with a shotgun, but Ricky makes sure he's dead this time. Apparently a shotgun blast to the shoulder isn't enough to take Ricky down, but a literal stake through the heart is. It's at this point that Lieutenant Connolly finally shows up with the rest of the police force, just in time to cart off the multiple bodies. And just like the ghost of poor choices in Christmas horror movies, Ricky bids us a happy new year before fading away. Much like this movie after a few mugs of spiked eggnog. And with that, the credits roll. Let's talk about the cons and cons of this film. There is a clearer attempt to have a Christmas vibe about this film than Part 2 had. Not an astounding amount, but some. While the realistic nature of the encased brain that Mosley had to wear is, highly questionable, it's at least interesting. It's probably the most interesting effect of the whole movie. Given how the franchise continues from here, I suppose a positive would be that this film attempted to add to the Billy and Ricky story. I don't know how many people would consider this a positive, but this is the final film to continue the Billy/Ricky plot. The characters weren't very engaging to me at all. The only ones I cared a little bit about were the grandma and Chris. None of them come close to reacting the way real people would in situations like this either. While Part 2 had overacting, this one had underacting. Most of the actors almost seemed confused as to what kind of movie they were in, and what their characters should be doing. This really felt like a waste of Bill Mosley. By now, we're all pretty familiar with what he's capable of doing, when given the chance. But here, he was just shuffling around, repeating a single word over and over. I can't even say that this felt like much of a Christmas movie, because aside from the basic decorations, not much effort was put in to make it feel as such. It was shot in spring in California, yes, but there are several movies set during Christmas in California that had no trouble feeling festive. The kills were pretty basic and not very memorable. It certainly won't be satisfying any gorehounds. There are a lot of points in this plot that retcon stuff from the previous two films. The reasoning behind why someone would want to keep an unhinged murderer alive, much less delve into their brains, eluded me in this case. How did this film manage to be less thrilling than the one that relied heavily on flashbacks from the first movie? Never once did I feel any threat or urgency in the events happening. That's practically the kiss of death for slasher or serial killer oriented films. With all that being said, I'm giving Silent Night, Deadly Night 3 Better Watch Out 2.5 out of 10 bloody thumbs up. As I mentioned before, Silent Night Part 2 was at least entertaining, in a completely ridiculous sense. This drags on and on and on without many satisfying moments at all for us horror fans. It lacks creative kills, special effects, minus the gummy brain in the salad bowl, and engaging characters. The plot barely even exists. But if you're in the mood to watch annoying characters and Bill Mosley shuffle around, then I guess this would be a great choice. I would recommend Silent Night, Deadly Night 3 Better Watch Out to Bill Mosley fans, Silent Night completionists, people looking for Christmas horror movies they haven't seen before, and anyone who wants to watch a horror movie that makes you feel like you're in a coma. See you later. If you're looking for more Killer Santas, check out my reviews of the rest of the Silent Night franchise. Thank you to my patrons Michael Musail, Bronson Wright Wolf, Dianamo, Sean Sheridan, Raiders AK, and Derek Sears for supporting the channel.